I'm Bill McDonald from Charlotte County Libraries and History, and welcome to Local Artist Spotlight. And we're very excited about our guest today, comic book artist Michael White. Michael, welcome.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Absolutely. Before we dive into your background a little bit, tell us about what being a comic book artist entails.
Okay, well, as far as for me, comic art has always been sort of the main vein of my love for artwork growing up, and it's I do lots of different types of illustration work, and I freelance, and I've done everything from album covers, to T-shirt designs, logos, poster designs, but comic art was always the thing that got me started early, or the first thing that really gave my young heart art fire. And so what it's like now, as far as I'm not the typical comic artist. I'm not working on for a company where I have deadlines every week and every day. I know a lot of my friends that are comic book artists, they do they're just working all the time. They're doing 2 or 3 pages a day, and they're tied to their desk. And I never wanted that. I sort of kept comic art as the thing that lights my fire, but I make most of my other money freelancing. So you're getting a chance to interview me about the thing I'm most passionate about, but it's not just what I do every day.
Sure.
Most of my work is actually caricature art, which is cartoon and comic-y and fun, but it's on the spot. But what's it like? It's fun. That's what it's like. It's all day fun, all the time, F-U-N.
And how did you get started in art? Did this interest start as a child?
I was drawing at 2 years old, so I think maybe my parents just handed me a pencil and said, "Shut up, kid, go draw." And I did, and I just never stopped. I've got some of those drawings. I didn't bring any of them with me today, but they're just pages full of little cars and people and roads, because all kids, especially little boys, love cars. So I would draw cars like a madman, and paper was scarce. I lived at my grandfather's farm in York County, South Carolina. So I was like a little kid on a farm with nothing to play with except maybe a cat, or go dig some clay out of the creek and make some figures or something. But I would just, if I had a piece of paper, I'd just draw front and back and fill it up. And so that was my first thing. I just love to draw. I love the act of drawing. When I got a little older, I discovered, when I teach these days, I always ask my students, who went through their Disney stage? And they all raise their hand. They're drawing Disney characters. And I'm like, who went through their animal stage? And they're all raising their hands. I'm like, you guys probably all went through your animal stage too. So for instance, I would just on notebook paper make up books of animals and just have fun, and then hook it together as a book. And I love that. I love making books. Another inspiration I was mentioning earlier was my dad had a pictorial Bible, and it was a big Bible with big color plates from old master paintings. And when I was a kid and I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I want to draw all that. It's it's gladiators and parting the Red Sea and horses and strong men and beautiful women, and it was just passionate and fiery and delicious, and I wanted to recreate that. So I at one point wanted to redo the whole Bible. I was going to redraw and rewrite the whole Bible, but just rewrite the same words, not change it or anything. But I was so enamored with the marriage of images with words that it really set me on fire. And then I saw comic books.
And then that was
And then once I saw comic books, I was like, that's it. It's got all that power and drama and color, and it's words and stories and adventure and action, and that kind of lit my fire for sure.
Was there a certain comic book that pulled you in, or was it just the whole?
I liked the whole genre. I felt more comfortable, or I enjoyed more the Marvel comics. And at that time, and still today, Captain America really appealed to me.
Okay.
And I sort of have to correct myself a little bit, because it wasn't because he was just and he was all about, like America and stuff like that. I just liked his colors.
Yeah.
I liked the way the red, white, and blue looked. And it was like the covers always got me. And so I started reading Captain America and imitating him. I started making my own comics. So here's my character, the Cobra.
The Cobra. That's a great name.
And then here he is with his friends, the Crusaders. And there's the Fly and the Eagle. I had really great names back then. I did have Dr. Weather and Captain Sin. He was the bad guy. But I read Captain America, and the storyline led Captain America into the Avengers. And then I was like, oh, I should start buying the Avengers, or I should start reading the Avengers now. So that's how that works. So I was reading the Avengers, and I was like, oh, teams are cool. So I started making my own teams. And I carried on with this. I was 11 doing this stuff. Notebook paper. I mean, these are actually already kind of, I took them apart so I could scan them. But they're, anyway, they're very naive. But within a year and a half, I went from that to more like this, which became a lot more intense.
Yeah.
The
You can
work
see
just got better and
it's
better.
more detailed and
Right. And just better drawing. And really, I brought all this stuff to show you, so I hope you're prepared. So gosh, within a year and a half, I was already doing comics like this.
oh my gosh.
And
yeah.
they were so much more advanced. I went from notebook paper to art paper, and then I had really cool things like, one of my favorite things in here is I did a 2-page spread of.
Wow.
But you can just see, I mean, how did that kid go from that to this in that short a time? And I was the kid, of course, but I was working, I was trying to keep up with professionals, so I was doing at least one comic a month. And I did about 12 issues of notebook paper comics. Then I went to the real paper, like art paper with full color. I started doing these. I did like 5 issues of this. And then I finally started reproducing my stuff in black and white and stapling it together so that I could give them away or sell them or whatever. I started getting more entrepreneurial. But yeah, boy, I just trained myself through comics. And I did get to take some art classes when I was a kid, but like I said, I was like 11 and 12 years old doing this stuff. And it's hard to get a kid that age into a class, because teachers are usually like, well, we don't take students that young. Or if you do get put in a class, they're doing things like gluing sequins to a paper plate. And you're like, what the heck? This isn't my class.
Right. So probably by the time you got in high school, you were probably doing a lot of different projects if a certain club or a team wanted.
Right, yeah. In school, I would illustrate my reports.
Wow.
So this is a report on glaciers, and this is a report on pollution. This one's fun. It's the galaxy and beyond. And my teachers would be like, who did this? I'm like, I did it. But I love the marriage of words and graphics with pictures. And that just, ever since I had seen that Bible, it had just really appealed to me that was something I wanted to spend a lot of time on. In junior high even, I was already doing the annual covers and stuff.
Wow.
I was getting asked to do this because people were like, oh, Michael White, he's an artist. Let's see if he'll do it. And I got lots of fun projects as a kid. I got a chance to do a mural for a church of the Jordan River. That was up in South Carolina. And somebody in the church had the newspaper come out to do an interview with me about the mural I had painted. And then the newspaper hired me to do courtroom sketches, and I was only 14 years old.
Wow, that's impressive.
So I think I am the youngest courtroom sketch artist ever in history. I'm going to go with that.
I don't doubt that, sir.
I claim it.
Obviously. And then as high school is coming to a close, you're looking at maybe going to an art school for college?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I got turned on to the idea that Ringling College was an option. That's what brought me to Florida. I went to high school in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Okay.
Funny thing, sort of. I keep adding stuff to show you because I got so much stuff I wanted to bring in. But I just did my 40th high school reunion, and they let me do the T-shirt design.
Oh, wow, look at that.
So I almost wore that today, but instead I wore my new shirt. But they let me. But in high school, I was highly encouraged. Had some great teachers and stuff. I had won some awards, and I was able to get a scholarship from the local Rock Hill Artists Guild that helped me a little bit. And then I got student loans, and I got accepted into Ringling at 17. I started Ringling College at 17 years old. And not because I was advanced, that was just how old I was when I graduated high school.
Sure.
Maybe because I started school in Oregon. I was born in California and then started school in Oregon. So I might have been a year ahead or something, but all I know is I was young, 17. Like, school starts in August, my birthday's in April. I was only 4 months of being 17 years old. My parents came to Sarasota, dropped me off at Ringling at some guy's condo, and they took off. I never saw them again. No, I did, but.
That's quite a task for someone that young taking on.
Oh, but I was ready. I was
were ready?
already winning awards and getting published, and I was already like, I didn't really think about being a prodigy at the time, but I was kind of a prodigy. Like if I when I meet kids like me that are young, that are 11, 12, 15, 17, I go, wow, you know, there's not a lot of them. There's only one every so often that already knows what they want to do and is already working on it. You know, whether it's
Sure.
art or anything,
Yeah.
no matter what type of interest you might develop. But yeah, I was very fortunate because I always knew what I wanted to do, and I stayed on it.
And what were some of the classes you took at Ringling, and how did they tie into your?
Well, I was still determined to be a comic book artist, but I knew I needed to get formal training first. And one thing you get when you go to art school is you take figure classes. So finally, you're actually drawing from real bodies, not just from imaginary muscle guys and girls. You know, you're not just, everybody isn't perfect like the way they are in comics. I was taking landscape drawing and such, so I was actually learning how to draw buildings, how to draw, you know, backgrounds, how to draw, you know, baskets of fruit. You know, you never know if you're doing a story, there might be a kitchen scene in it, there might be a basket of fruit there. But, you know, in comics, you kind of, what you realized and what helped me a lot when I was doing my childhood comics was it helped me realize that, oh man, I got to draw a car. I got to draw a cloud. I got to draw a building. I got to draw a man in a suit. And then I have to think to myself, what does a suit look like? I got to look this stuff up in a J.C. Penney catalog or something, you know. I got to see what these things look like. And then when I went to art school, it was great because I was kind of ahead of a lot of the other students because I had already hit those problems and started solving them and realized that, like, yeah, you can't just draw a generic pair of glasses on somebody's face. You got to think there's style. There's haircuts that have style. There's clothes that have style. There's body language, stuff like that. But anyway, at Ringling, it just helped me to draw more from life, you know, landscapes, portraits, figure drawings. And then it helped me to have the structure, of course. All college helps you have that. Gives you a chance to have a deadline. You know, you got to turn in sketches. You got to, like, do what the teacher says. If the assignment's supposed to be 10 by 15 and you turn it in 11 by 12, you don't pass. It's you missed it, you know. You didn't follow the directions. And you learn that in art school.
Was there a portfolio that they required, or?
When you go to try to get into school, you got to show them some
okay.
stuff. And all colleges sort of have an outline of their ideal portfolio they want you to submit. So, for instance, I remember two of the things I had to prepare in order to get into Ringling. I couldn't just show them my drawings of comic books or my drawings of animals or whatever else I had done. They wanted an upside-down umbrella illustrated so that you had to draw all the mechanical stuff underneath the umbrella. And they wanted an interior of a room. So I drew my living room at my house. I'll tell you another thing that I did when I was a teenager that really got me prepared for Ringling was I started drawing from photographs. So I would take a National Geographic magazine and find some images in there, and then I would draw from the National Geographic. And those are A-plus, you know, photographers. So when you draw from good photos, you get good results as long as you take the time to finish rendering it. But I learned a lot about composition and subject matter and, you know, color and mood and all that stuff. But at Ringling, I continued to win awards. I started getting published. Like I have somewhere here. I've been, I would win awards. I would go to comic book conventions, and they would sometimes have competitions to get in some of the books. And with Marvel Comics, I got into Epic Illustrated twice from going there. And let me see if I got those here. I do. I'm so proud of this. So, you know, if you had never seen your work published, like I had been published on my high school annual or on some local play or something, but Marvel Comics created sort of a fantasy magazine, and they would have competitions at the Atlanta Fantasy Fair, which was one of my favorite events to go to. And if you won, you got published. And I got published with this this little story here.
Oh, wow, look at
Called
that.
Fortresses. And it was a poem that a friend of mine wrote, and I illustrated it. It was just 3 or 4 pages, but just a little fantasy poem. And I was so, like, this gave me some wind under my sails to think, okay, I can be a fantasy comic artist, you know, I can do this. So I won twice, 2 years in a row I won an award. I wasn't the only winner. They chose other artwork as well, and they published all of us in the same the winners issue. So that was cool.
So when you conclude with Ringling Art School, where do you head? Where do you focus your energies after?
Well, I graduated in the 80s. So I graduated in 1985. And back then, if you were going to be an artist, you had to go to New York, because that's where all the publishing houses were at. And also that's where the comic book companies were. The year before I graduated, I visited New York City, and an alum, a former student at Ringling, Mike Zeck, who's one of my best friends still to this day, he invited me. One of my instructors, I'll back up just slightly. One of my instructors saw the kind of work I was doing and the progress I was making and said, "Do you know who Mike Zeck is?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he showed me. And then Mike Zeck created the Punisher. He helped create the Punisher. He's the first artist that did the black suit on the Spider-Man, which became Venom. Did all the Secret Wars art. They just had a big show of his at Ringling College, too. But anyway, he was a very successful comic artist in the 80s already, and my instructor got me in touch with him. And so I called Mike and told him I was coming to New York area to look into making a career in comics and thinking about where I would move after I graduated the next year. And he said, "Come on and stay with me. I'll take you around. I'll take you into the company and introduce you to my friends and stuff." So that was great. How generous is that? So I went up and got to meet Mike. He took me into Marvel. I met Stan Lee and Archie Goodwin, which I'd already met Archie Goodwin before because he was the editor of the Epic Illustrated that got me published the year before. So he was like, "Oh, I know who you are." I wasn't famous or anything, but I was just a kid, you know, trying to make a career. And anyway, the next year I moved up and got me an apartment in New Haven, Connecticut, to be near New York. Mike was in West Haven, which is right down the street from New Haven. And he hung out with me all those 3 years, and he helped me develop my skills. And I did get some comic book work while I was there. I worked for other artists doing backgrounds. And then every now and again, I would get to ink someone else's pencils for What The, which was a magazine Marvel did. It was a comedy magazine called What The. And then I also got published with some of my original work in Topps Comics. So Topps Trading Cards also had a comic company during that period. But, oh, what a great time. That whole period was great. Some of my backgrounds I'm most excited about is I did a couple issues of the beginning of the Sandman series. That's Neil Gaiman's Sandman,
Neil
which is
Gaiman,
very
sure.
popular. And I actually did the backgrounds for the couple first issues of it. I don't get credit for it, so you would never know it was me, but they let me do it, yeah. So that was cool. I worked for the other artist. Yeah.
Impressive, yeah.
What would happen is like if I was a publishing house and I hired you to illustrate a comic, you might say, well, I'm just going to do all the action figures and make sure the quality is up there, but I'm going to have one of my, that's when somebody hires somebody like me to do all the little buildings in the background, or all the bricks in the brick wall, or all the stupid stuff. You know, the stuff that just takes up time, but still needs to be there to tell the
absolutely,
story.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's nothing to brag about, but it is kind of.
Well, and having all that detail in the background really completes the whole
Yeah,
comic, and
I've
each
worked on a
cell in the comic
Batman
book.
series. I've worked on a Robin. I worked on a bunch of different comics that are up there, and that have.
Did you have a
through the years.
particular that you liked the most, or were they all?
No,
great?
that was just jobs to me to get my feet wet. I was hoping to publish my own, to get my own original stuff published. And then what I started realizing is that comic book artists work all the time. I might have said that earlier. They work a lot. And I didn't know if I wanted to really work that hard. I wanted the fame and the money, but I didn't want to have to work all the time. I mean, even my friends like Mike that are famous and were really doing great stuff, they had to work real hard all week, but then go to conventions, which you'd think, oh, that's how exciting, you're going to a convention. They're like, not really, because we're behind a desk the whole time doing sketches for fans, and maybe we get together with the other guys for drinks or something later, but it's like we got to get up early the next morning and do it all again,
They're selling and promoting their stuff.
Right, and working for the companies, So for me, I sort of started getting the idea that, like, I just want to do what I want to do, and then if people publish it, they publish it, and in the meantime, I'll just make do with my freelance work or whatever. And that's kind of where I am now. Like, I do comics when I want to do them, however I want to do them. This is actually a sample from my Topps comic stuff. That's the Toxic Turtle.
Great name.
And then this was from a series that I did when I was in art school called The Shrooms, which I still work on today, about mushroom people taking over the planet, because they're coming.
Oh, okay. Well, we got to watch out for those.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Literally. Literally.
So is that what brought you back to Florida from New York, or was there?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I lived in New Haven for 7 years, and I pursued my art career. I did well. I got good stuff. Like, hand me that game there. I got great freelance work. I got to do the Clintonopoly.
Oh, okay.
Back in the Clinton era. And this was fun, because it was a board game.
Yeah.
It was a board game, complete with the cards.
And you illustrated that.
And all that, and there's the booklet, everything, the dice.
Yeah.
And I got to do that. When you're a freelance artist, I think it's more fun than just doing one thing.
The variety must be tremendous.
Oh yeah, man! I've done children's books and hot sauce. Hot sauce. You need some hot sauce.
Wow! Look at that. Yeah.
So I sort of started enjoying taking freelance more than anything. So what I did in New Haven, very artsy town, Yale University's there, but I started my own small press publishing company and I started a company and I started it this way. Yeah, I have all this stuff here, man. Got everything. Even in art school, I started doing small press publishing. And so I started Malfunction Comics, and these were two of our productions, Cosmic Discharge and Nightmares. When I got out of Ringling, I knew I still wanted to publish. So what I started doing was this. I created Next Phase magazine. And it was a very simple concept. I knew I couldn't afford to do a full-fledged magazine. It had to be affordable. So the format's great. It's just a big piece of paper that's folded. You get you get some poems, some stories, and a poster for the featured artist. Because one thing I've always wanted to do, even with the Malfunction comics, was feature the work of other artists that weren't getting published or give them a spotlight. So I did this for several years when I was in New Haven. I started this company. We eventually got advertisers. And we moved on to funky things like holograms and stuff. And this one has an extra fold, so I've actually got more pages and, again, a featured artist.
Yeah, look at the detail in that.
So I started just getting into this. Now, I had a girlfriend of mine, you know, she was a girl and a friend, and she went to Yale, and she got involved with me and started helping me produce these. When I left New Haven to come back to Florida in '93, so I was there for like 7 years. When I left, she continued to publish Next Phase, and she turned it into a full-fledged slick magazine, like the real deal. And it featured things like my Toxic Turtle comics. She would still let me publish in it, and don't worry about that.
Okay.
But stories, poems, the same thing that I started it as. Let's feature other artists. Let's have writers and artists get together and publish artwork. And so this was nationally distributed, and she was actually able to sell it on to another publisher that continued with it as far as I know. But I started doing caricatures even when I was at Ringling. I would go to a party and draw people. And I continued that in New Haven. And through the years, I just got more, I got better, for one thing, and I got more and more of a following, more clientele. And today, you know, even when, after coming back to Sarasota, I'm busier than ever with that work, which is great. So you sort of asked me, how did I end up back in Sarasota?
Sure.
So, you know, this whole area of Florida is amazing. We all love it here. I vacationed here as much as I could while I was in the Northeast. You know, I was sort of, you know, I was becoming, in New York, I was getting really educated about the way the rest of the world was. Because up until then, I'd only been really in South Carolina and Florida. And those don't really represent the whole world. You go to New York and you're like, oh, wow, the world's not what I thought it was. You know, you learn and you get sort of educated. But I kept vacationing back here in Florida, and I won. There was a year I couldn't afford to vacation. I just couldn't come to Florida. I was like, oh no, but that's okay, whatever. And there's a radio station in New York City called Hot 97. It's a dance station, and I would listen to it from time to time. Well, they had a competition, or they had a contest where they where winners, not just one winner, but winners, would be flown down to Universal Studios for a couple of days, where you could hang out with a lot of like current dance musicians of the time. So there was bands like Kathy Dennis and Two in a Room, and a bunch of hot dance music people were all gathering to do this like concert series. And I won. I won one of the tickets, one of the sets of tickets. And I told myself, if I get to Orlando, I'm definitely going to Sarasota, even if I forfeit my flight home, and I'll just take the bus home or whatever I have to do to get back to Connecticut. I'm just like, I'm just going to do it. So I did win. I went to Orlando, had a great time, met all those musicians, hung out with them, got to know some of them on a more personal basis, and then I came to Sarasota, and I walked into Ringling College. And at the time, I walked into the Continuing Studies department, and my friend Linda Vesley, who's no longer with us, and her husband Al Vesley, they were running the department. And I walked in, and they see me, and they basically go, "Michael White, where have you been? Do you want a job?" And I'm like, and this was in '93. So I was like, yeah, I think I do, but maybe, I don't know. I got to think about it. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll go down to Ringling and teach for a summer. So out of my little visit to the campus, just to wander around and see who I saw, I got offered a job to teach summer teen studios. So working with the teenagers, which is great. I love teenagers, and I love young artists, and I love giving back. So I came down for that summer to teach and had such a good time I never left.
Wow, that's a great find, yeah.
And I've been teaching there since.
And what does teaching give you? What do you enjoy about teaching?
Well, what I was just saying, the whole giving back, like trying to be the cool art teacher that I wish that I had when I was that age. And I did have some good teachers, so I did have cool art teachers, but I wanted to be the one that I really want. Like, I wanted to be the one that I am now, one that does comics and cartoons, and then turns around and does a landscape painting and comes in wearing their own shirt or has a hot sauce.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a teacher that shows you that, like, oh wow, I could do fun stuff and make a living doing it. So yeah, that's been about 28 years ago, and I've loved being in Sarasota area, the whole area.
Yes. Now, with all your work as a comic book artist and illustrator and caricaturist, you've also managed to squeeze some time over the years to help out the Charlotte County Library System through the youth department in various ways. You want to talk a little bit about that?
With my teaching, that's given me opportunities to do other workshops and stuff. And through the years, the library systems have had me all over Florida to come in and do some cartooning and comic workshops. It's very popular, still is today, especially character design and stuff, where we make up characters and you get to name them and give them a story or figure out how you're going to use them in a design. So yeah, I've worked here in this very library quite a few times, and up in Venice and Sarasota, and gosh, I've even gone down towards Miami and done some stuff. Yeah, it's been awesome. I'm trying to think if I have something to show about that. Oh, I know. One thing that I really try to do when I teach is this. I think, not just when I was in high school and I was getting ready, or I was praying to God or whatever, just meditating on the idea that, like, how can I be successful? How can I get to college? How can I afford it? Not knowing if I could, because my parents didn't have money to send me to college. I would have to get scholarships or whatever else to get there. So I started reading a lot of positive thinking books, and books about, like, how to manifest your destiny or how to take control of what you want and make it happen. So all through the years, I've been sure that when I teach, I try to, like, always have be a positive role model.
Sure.
And give positive, like, reinforcement, and give them things like this, I will make stuff like this and put it all around the room. Like, remember, everyone loves an artist, always be professional, nothing hokey pokey or anything, but more like just good stuff, just how do you, be better, if you do good, good will happen to you. You know, that sort of positive attack. You know, give 110% and you'll always be successful, that's really one of the biggest things I preach to my students. I say preach, but you know, I try to reiterate that,
Yeah,
like,
you instill in
if
there-
you work hard, you'll have everything you want. And as hard as you work, that's about as much as you'll get. You know,
Yeah.
simple stuff like that. Not getting really deep at all with it, but always just being the positive.
My
role
latest thing I've been doing,
I've been experimenting. You know, COVID was horrible, but it was great if you knew you could afford your bills and you had time on your hands all of a sudden to just do the stuff you love to do. So I did stuff like revisit a lot of my old comic
Oh, yeah,
characters.
look at
I
that.
took some of the same characters and turned them into cartoon characters. And I was like, well, you know, maybe I'll do a style like that. Oh, here's one of the, that's that same cover. Okay, this is great because it's the same cover I showed you earlier,
Sure, yeah.
but it's done as a new poster. So this is the same as that piece. So I sort of just been playing, you know, with like I feel like I have a lifetime of characters and stories and stuff, and I want to get them out there before I get much older, especially if I get too old that I can't do it, or if COVID or something gets me. It's sort of like, oh man, I got to do this stuff. But at the same time, just want to have fun, so I'm not trying to kill myself doing it. I really lately, one of my favorite things to do is I've been working on my Roadkill comic. Let's see if here's a nice page from my Roadkill comic. I've got like a junk monster.
Oh, yeah.
He's just made up of a bunch of junk.
That's an
And
interesting one.
instead of just doing it pen and ink or whatever, I'm embellishing it with pencils and putting
Oh,
lots of time
yeah.
and energy in it. And I'm in a stage of right now, something that's going on with me is I used to do paste up for lettering, you know, like cut and paste, typography, stuff like that. But now in the digital era, I've been trying to learn how to like scan my comics into the computer and then do all my lettering on the computer and then create those as my finished original pages. But I really just enjoy making the pages, so I'm all the
yeah.
time just busting butt on this kind of stuff. It's sort of like my side hustle that I do just for me.
If the viewers want to find out more about you on a particular website,
Absolutely.
where would they go to, Michael?
They will go to michaelwhiteart.com. It's that simple. And also from there is all my connections to all my social media.
Well, this has been Local Artist Spotlight, and our guest has been comic book artist and illustrator and caricature and all-around visual wonderman.
Thank you.
We have had a wonderful time finding out about you and your art, and we thank you for being part of Local Artist Spotlight.
Thanks. And I hope I didn't talk too much.
Just the right amount. Just the right amount.
Thank you.